just the anticipation of, recruiting and kind of the first few months of the first semester building up towards that and preparing you for that I was just like waiting in anticipation to get like a first interview so that I could really dive deep into the recruiting process. So it was exciting but stressful, and I think that's normal for everyone.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Welcome to another episode of the Intersection Podcast, brought to you by the Georgia Tech Scheller College of Business. I'm your host, Analisa Wade. I'm a first-year full-time MBA student here at Scheller. Today, we're bringing you a very exciting episode, a part of the summer series where MBA students are talking about their summer internship experiences. Today, we have Janice Jean and Caroline Player, her career services advisor, and they're going to talk about their relationship and how they navigated Janice landing her summer internship. Hi, how are you both doing?
Hello.
Doing great. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. Very excited to share this moment with you and to talk about your internship experience that's coming up and exactly how you navigated that. So let's start with your background. What brought you to Scheller, and what's your Scheller story? Let's start there.
Okay. So I previously, before coming to Scheller, I was in supply chain at Tesla, and that was a very general procurement role on the indirect team. I realized that I wanted to do something a bit more sustainability focused and kind of tying together supply chain and sustainability. But when I was looking at the roles on LinkedIn and stuff, they required 10 years of work experience or, managerial experience, which at the time I didn't have. So I wanted to get an MBA to better position myself for those types of roles in the future. Caroline really helped me during the summer before prepping for the first semester and kind of helping me plan out the recruiting process and just getting my mindset right before the start of the semester.
We had homework that we asked each student to do, and Janice came ready for the MBA program. I wanted to highlight that we have a career interest worksheet that we ask every student to do during the summer. And there's some introspective questions, certainly, that we ask, but one's thing specifically is the industry, function, and geographic region where the student would ideally like to be. So those three things. And Janice hit all of those things with her internship search: tech industry, operations and supply chain function, and located in the West. So I was really impressed with how well her planning in the summer worked out for her in the long run.
Well, I'm just blown away because I didn't check any of those boxes, I'm sure. No, I want to go back and look at it now and just see what was I thinking then versus where I'm at now. That's awesome that your summer plan is exactly what you're going to do. So I guess we can kind of spoil and let's work backwards here and tell everyone where you're going for the summer.
Yeah, so I am doing my summer internship at Dropbox. So the title is MBA Supply Chain Intern. So I'm going to be on the data center supply chain team. So really thinking, looking forward 3 to 5 years, what that strategy outlook looks like, and helping Dropbox devise a strategy to help meet capacity demands for their data centers.
That is so cool. That's very exciting. And that directly aligns with what you said earlier. You said something like sustainability focus, supply chain focus, West Coast, you just did it. Now, was that extremely intentional or did it just happen to work out that way?
I think it's a bit of both. I applied to many different industries, so not just tech. Mm-hmm. I applied to EV manufacturing industry, other tech companies, and then consumer goods. Whichever had the right role that I was looking for. I was pretty open to whatever industry, but I really was interested and put a lot of effort into recruiting for a tech role because I knew that they were prioritizing sustainability. I knew that, especially for data centers, there was going to be a large impact in the sustainability space. So I wanted to really, put all put in all of my effort to get that role, and it just happened, like everything aligned. I honestly forgot all of my answers from the summer. But yeah.
Now, Caroline, can you like maybe outline or just mention any key things that you saw Janice do while she was here to actually land that internship with Dropbox?
Absolutely. As I mentioned before, I think that Janice always came with a plan. I mean, we asked students to do a number of things over the summer. So when they come into school, they hit the ground running, and everything was well done. From a resume and cover letter, the documents that she'd need to pursue this internship right from the get-go, the planning that she had put forth, and the idea she had in mind, the goals she had in mind. I think all of that was exceptionally well done. I remember her qualifying interview, which we ask all students to do during the fall semester. And I actually looked back at my notes from that, and Janice consistently told her story in a clear, concise, but descriptive enough way, and always connected her skills and abilities to the type of role that she was interviewing for. So consistently through her stories, the employer could not help but see, hey, I can understand how Janice is going to contribute here. So I would say it was from, doing the introspective work of what she wanted to do, and then getting all the documents and stories together that help support that, and then starting early. I mean, I would say that you hit that ground running, because if I'm remembering correctly, Janice, it wasn't like November when you started interacting with Dropbox, certainly in the fall semester. And I think that that's also a thing when you want to, when you have this planning done, jump in and make yourself available to these employers. And I think Janice did all of that right.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Like this earlier you start, especially if it's like a top company that's also high on your list, you need to make yourself visible to that company as soon as possible because everyone else is. So I think you went about it the right way. Caroline mentioned how you had, your interview stories and your situational behavioral stories just all mapped out. Can you recall a specific career workshop or just something we did in relation with career services that really helped you navigate your stories?
I think that I had most of that outlined and planned during the summer.
Yeah.
So during the summer, we have a bunch of kind of things that we need to do before the start of the semester and before orientation. And I just remember feeling a little overwhelmed with the number of items that I needed to accomplish. And I was just like, okay, I just need to kind of take a weekend to kind of check all of these boxes. So I spent quite a lot of time just drafting up the initial stories and doing all of that prior to the summer, prior to starting the fall semester. So that definitely helped prepare me for recruiting. And I completely forgot the question.
You're answering. I was just saying, was there a specific thing, a resource that career services gave you or guided you? So I remember when we were put into groups, hopefully I'm not spoiling this for future students, but when we were put into groups and we all had to go over a behavioral interview question, I was terrified. Even though I love to talk, I was very terrified to share my star format and story in front of a group of people. But did those moments like that, did that help you when you were actually getting to your qualifying interview or your actual interview with Dropbox?
Yeah. So I found those workshops to be really helpful. I think especially during orientation, just hearing other people's experiences, how they've structured and how they're selling themselves. I took that inspiration and edited my drafts a little bit. And I think just working with you and connecting with you over the summer, getting that initial feedback so that I could slowly, step by step and not kind of rushing it right before the qualifying interview was helpful. Yeah. So just consistently communicating with you throughout the summer and during the first semester, was key.
And Lisa, I just did similar group for our evening program students over the weekend, one of the small groups. And I think, and one thought that occurred to me is, when you have 10 or so people in a small group and you're all trying to give feedback, everybody, including your interviewers, is going to be so different, right? They're going to be listening with different ears because they've all had different experiences. So that's one of the reasons I really like that. Definitely on top of what Janice said about the, how other people answered, but getting the perspectives of all the different students and, hearing it through their own ears, I think that is always a really good exercise for that. I always like.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
And I will say that I really used the MBA interviewing experience to kind of test my answers, because I feel like a lot of the behavioral questions you're going to get asked that in any kind of interview, especially an MBA interview when you're applying to schools. So definitely don't let all of that effort in preparing to get an MBA go to waste.
That's a good point. Yeah,
absolutely. Were you going to say something, Caroline?
No, I just think that you're right, that many of the questions that you might get asked in the admissions process can certainly spark those stories that you'll use later on. Yeah.
Absolutely. And what about other resources to strategize your entire journey? So I know we homed in on Dropbox. I'm assuming there were other companies on your list as well. What was your whole recruitment strategy, like coffee chats, interviewing, applications? Did you have a game plan?
So I came up with a list of companies that I wanted to apply to and I knew had some sort of pipeline to an MBA role. So I created a list of 30 or so companies and then just checked every so often, during the semester, just to see if they posted their MBA internships. So I kept a tracker just to keep, note of progress throughout the recruiting process. And I was very fortunate in that I wanted to continue what I did before. So I had a good understanding of what kind of roles would be available, what I had to do to prepare for those roles. But I did leverage, so for for applying, just chatting with some of my coworkers and old coworkers from Tesla and their connections, just to understand what other opportunities are there in the supply chain space that I might have not been aware of based on online research. So that honestly led me to the data center space. Before I was telling Caroline that I wanted to go into the human rights side of sustainability in supply chain. But that is still a very niche space and still emerging. And there's not really a lot of internship roles available in that space. So just chatting with some of the people in my network and then mutual connections in my network, I came across data center supply chain and how that kind of is adjacent to, it's still heavily connected to sustainability on the environmental side, but something that I could definitely kind of explore more as the space is evolving and growing.
That's really smart. You having a list of 30, I think I had 10, which became 5. And I was very glued to those 5 companies, but 30 sounds a little bit more smarter and strategic, realistic. So that's really great. While she was doing all these different things along her journey, was there a moment when you realized, okay, she's going down the right path? She has it together. Her strategy is working. Is there a moment that you had like that?
Well, if I'm being honest, I thought that from the very beginning. I mean, just that level of preparation from the get-go and, thinking about her own background and how that she might contribute to, a new position at a different level, maybe. I really thought from the get-go that the level of preparation and the plans and that sort of thing all made sense to me. Now, I remember Janice getting some traction starting pretty shortly after our qualifying interview, I think right at the beginning of November. And was then this is starting to happen. Not only is all the preparation great, but what she's saying is making an impact with the employers that she wants to go after. So yeah, I could tell that was starting to really gel right in November.
And what did that feel like for you? Like, you're putting in all this work, you have a list of 30 companies, you finally get that interview. What does that feel like for you?
First, I was stressed. I was like, oh no, I have to prepare. But it was very exciting because I think that I'm like, just the anticipation of, recruiting and kind of the first few months of the first semester building up towards that and preparing you for that I was just like waiting in anticipation to get like a first interview so that I could really dive deep into the recruiting process. So it was exciting, but stressful. And I think that's normal for everyone.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Now, one thing that was really nerve-wracking for me, so don't like make me feel bad if you didn't feel this way. How was the waiting period for you? So like you did an interview with a company and like you're waiting to hear back?
Oh, yeah, that was horrible. So I can talk about like the one with Dropbox. So I signed up for an interview slot that was like one of the first interview slots for my final round interview. And, it's almost like the winter holidays and the winter break. And a lot of companies take like the last, like, a lot of people take PTO during that time, and some companies even have a week-long break at the end of the year. But I was promised a 2-week turnaround time, and it was not 2 weeks. I waited a pretty long time, and I think, it's normal, especially trying to recruit during that season, but I had to wait through the holidays and, I was just like, I was hoping to celebrate during the holidays, but I was just like, I was so nervous. I was like picking my fingers. I was just like looking at my phone all the time. I was like, did I get an email yet? But yeah, I heard back the day after Christmas.
Oh, that's wow.
Yeah. So a late Christmas present.
Yeah. Yes. But at least it was before the new year. And Caroline, do you see, like, what are the most often, like, waiting periods that you see? Like, what's the typical range?
You know what? It varies so dramatically company to company. Sometimes with our employer partners, they're coming to campus and you might hear within days. But then, external employers that, kind of you're doing your own independent search through them, it's so hard to tell. But I know I see students taking it. So, personally, they're invested in the process and they want the information, of course, because they're so excited. But we have to think about, like vacations, like not being able to schedule the other interviews as seamlessly as they might have hoped. And it just takes a longer amount of time than I think than some people anticipate to get through that whole process. Sometimes, like I said, it's a few days or a week, and sometimes it's months. It's months before everything is finished.
I can attest to the months situation.
Yeah.
What advice do you give students when they're going through that just anxiety during the waiting period?
I think just thinking it as long as there has an answer has not been given, there's still a lot of positivity out there. There's still positive possibilities. And talking to students through or about, these external situations that we can't control. I think that controlling the controllables, going out and doing the best job you can possibly do, being proud of the preparation you've done for the interview and interacting with people, following up and, expressing thanks for having had the opportunity to interview. I think that's what you can do. And keep checking in, not overly frequently, but letting them know that you're still interested. I think that can be a proactive way to still keep on their mind. But just letting them know, hey, things happen that are outside of our control. And sometimes we just have to, do what we can and then wait for that response.
Yeah. I agree. It's very hard.
It is.
Yeah.
I have not mastered that skill at all. I go into complete panic mode when I'm waiting, and I just try to smile like it's all good, but I'm like crumbling inside.
As an advisor, too, I would say, Janice's story of, hey, there are times that I could relay that a very similar situation has occurred, right? And just understand, still very positive outcome, but it was just more delayed than a student may have anticipated.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So Janice, is there any advice that you would give students in their recruitment journey and how they can leverage career services on their way?
I do think that being proactive and taking the initiative yourself to do a lot of the initial research is important, because no one's going to know what kind of role or what kind of like job really interests you as much as you do. You know your own interests, you know what your strengths are. So you have to bring that initial research to career services, and then they can provide brainstorming sessions. You can bounce ideas off of them of how to best, what to prioritize, where to put your efforts on, and also how to best prepare for interviewing those positions. So being prepared and then doing the research and being very proactive for the job search. I know that it can be a little bit scary, stressful during this time, but I think constantly or regularly checking what kind of opportunities are out there, just so for your own for your own information, but also so that you can apply when the right opportunity pops up, because most of the times, at least from what I've seen and the roles that I've applied to, companies will post a job for maybe less than a week, and they get hundreds and hundreds of applicants, and then they'll just take down the position. So it's important to, keep checking and just to stay positive and make sure that you're doing the preparation you need to do to be successful.
Yeah, I agree with that. I know one student, their strategy was if it doesn't say it was posted in less than 3 days, they don't apply. And they said it worked for them. After 3 days, there's no point because you've missed that wave. I don't know if I agree with that or not, but that's a strategy.
I think it could vary, but you're right. I think Janice's point with the jobs not remaining in this economy up as long as they might have remained, 2 years ago or even a year ago, it's been a really dramatic difference. Yeah. So I think you have to make sure you're considered for the opportunity. Apply early.
As soon as you see it. That was my strategy. Yeah. I see it, I like it, I apply. I see it, I like it.
That's a
there was
strategy.
One position where I saved the position that morning, and it was posted that morning. At night, it was gone. Yeah, and I was just like, wow. I didn't even have time to click apply.
Yeah. It almost becomes like a game a little bit. It's like in my spare time, I would just find myself, I'm like, what are you doing?
It's LinkedIn is my new social media.
Exactly. I went to the extreme. I'm not even on Instagram or Facebook or anything. I would say it's because of my recruitment strategy. Really, I just decided to do without. But it is funny that LinkedIn literally is now my only platform. And Caroline, just passing it to you, is there any advice that you would give current students who are coming in and they're going to start this same journey on how they can really be as prepared and have a great recruitment strategy?
I think that it is never too early to start forming your goals of what direction you want to take this MBA. I think we do an assessment that we offer students early during the summer, which I think can help with that. Our career interest worksheet can help, guide some of the thought behind that. I would also say, talk to people who are doing, work that you might be interested in, that have an MBA and have used it in a certain way that you might want to, and just, compare their experiences to how you envision your post-MBA career to see if that might be feasible for you. So those are some things. I think that the first semester is incredibly busy. I think I have two people here who could say that. And to make sure to have a certain degree of readiness coming into the program on both what you want to do, how you want to use this program, and then the, resume, interviewing stories, all those things you'll use to get the opportunity you want. You want to have that done. And then, like Janice said, carve out time during that first semester that you can make sure that you're paying attention to keeping those stories fresh or making any adjustments you feel like would make sense. Apply for jobs as they come available. So I would say, even though the first semester is incredibly busy, you'll still benefit from balancing that time out between academics and career prep and job search.
Mm-hmm.
And when you were saying making like a certain schedule or, crafting out like a strategy, is there a recommended cadence that you think students should meet with career services like along their way?
Well, I was looking, and I think Janice and I met probably about 4 times over from summer through the fall. Informal appointments.
Yes,
that's what I'm remembering.
Never made an appointment.
But then, I love for students to pop by and give me updates, and so that's what works for Janice and I. Right? That was great. So we had some, more formal appointments, and then we would keep in touch via, messaging and via her popping by occasionally, and that's great. I think the students just have to decide what's right for them. I've had certainly students that came by more frequently for more formal meetings. I mean, almost a weekly basis in certain times of year. And that's fine too. But I think it has to be like, how do you want to leverage career services to help you? Where do you feel like you need the help? And what cadence would work for a person individually. So whether it's, once a month or once a week, I think there's a big variety on what's going to be right for the individual student.
I 1000% agree. I've met with everyone. I feel like I was in career services. I was probably the weekly person. Whether it's recruiting, I mentioned this on Dave's episode, wardrobing, just life. Yeah. I just need to breathe, and who's going to listen to me? Well, hopefully they're there. And you always were, so thank you for that. Well, thank you both for joining me on the Intersection podcast. This was really great hearing your story and how it all came to life and how you leveraged career services. This was really great. I hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Really enjoyed it. Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Intersection podcast, brought to you by Georgia Tech Scheller College of Business. Very excited to have this episode with career services, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can also catch us on Apple, Spotify, or SoundCloud. Thanks again.